have no political agenda, sir. I really don't.
What about all the...
Nobody that I know does either. We're purely objective journalists.
Yeah, you are. What about...
Truly, sir, from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, I know.
I don't have a political dog in any of
Okay,
these
what
fights.
about all the compilation videos where they show thousands of newscasts in every city all reporting and saying the exact same thing?
Nobody tells me what to say, sir.
But there's compilation videos on YouTube and Twitter. They got millions and millions of views where every reporter in every city at every station, they say the exact same thing word for word. How do you explain that?
I don't know what you're referring to, so I can't really...
Of course you don't. Of course you don't.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you so much for your time. It was
Thank
nice
you.
to chat with you.
It was great talking to you.
Have a good one.
Put your mask on. Watch out, the virus is going to get you. Oh, why do you got to wear... You didn't have your mask on the whole time, and now you're putting your mask on. Here's the guy. He's been standing here the whole time without his mask. Here's his camera dude with no mask on. But here he is. Now he's still trying to scare everyone. Now he's going to put his mask on while he reports. Keep spreading that fear, buddy. Keep spreading that fear. Why didn't you have your mask on before? Now he's not talking to me. Why didn't you have your mask on the last 10 minutes?
Sir,
huh?
They're asking us to wear it per guidelines for television to set.
Oh, so you're told what to do. Exactly. You just told me you weren't told what to do. You just told me you could do whatever you want.
I said I was told not. I wasn't told what to say.
Oh, you're just told what to wear.
We're trying to follow and set a good example.
Oh, okay. Set a good example. Is that what it is?
Okay. Sir, I appreciate it. Can you please let me do my job now?
I like filming phonies. What's your name again?
David
Phony?
Kaplan.
Yeah, go somewhere else. Huh? Why don't you report on the MRC5? When are you going to report on that? Huh? Hey, David Kaplan. When are you going to report on the MRC5? Huh?
Sir, can you please let us do our job?
I'm doing my job.
Sir,
this is my job.
Sir, I am trying to do my job right now. Can you please?
I'm doing my job right now. I'm reporting on why you're a liar. Take the mask off. Why? You didn't have your mask on the whole time. Now you put it on. Look at him. He went and hid. He went and hid inside the car.
So this is breaking news, and this is about Dr. Evil returning with neuroweapons, and they're aimed right at you. So the images that you see are Nazi images that indicate or signal bioweapon experimentation. And in our predictive programming, we can see this in Blofeld, in James Bond, Dr. Evil in Austin Powers, and the bad guy Doofenshmirtz in Phineas and Ferb. And in real life, the head doctor of Plum Island, when it was transferred from the military to the USDA, also fit this image, as well as Dr. Leonard Eldridge, who did biological experimentation with pathogens that came from Plum Island and who put out an assassination contract on myself back in about 2007. So I'm bringing this breaking news to you from a multi-part military podcast on weaponizing brain science. The Weaponizing Brain Science podcast discuss the interaction of neurosciences and national security. Dr. Giordano the Dr. Evil or the modern day Dr. Mengele returns to us with some alarming insights into the weaponization of brain science. He has the credentials, the power, and the influence to make these experiments a reality that are going to impact your life. And so what are some of these credentials? He is a professor in the Department of Neurology and Biochemistry. He is the chief of Neuroethics Studies Program. He is the co-director of the O'Neill Pellegrino Program in Brain Science and Global Policy at Georgetown University Medical Center. He is a research fellow and biosecurity technology and ethics at the U.S. Naval War College. He is appointed member of the Dartmouth Neuroethics Legal and Societal Issues Advisory Panel. He is a senior fellow of the Defense Operational Cognitive Science Section. He is part of a multi-layer assessment group at the Joint Staff of the Pentagon. He is a consulting bioethicist for the Defense Medical Ethics Committee. He is a Donovan Fellow for Biowarfare and Biodefense at the U.S. Special Operations Command. He is an appointed member of the Department of Health who is calling the medical martial law emergency. And he is also the Human Services Secretary Advisory Committee on Human Research. So how does this doctor define a neuroweapon? Let's listen in his own words.
Can you define what you mean by the word neuroweapons?
You know, the idea of using any instrument or method as means of contending against others is a very formal definition of a weapon. It need not be something that is malevolent per se.
So what does a neuroweapon do? Let us listen carefully to the words that are being said.
But again, by operational definition, what a weapon does is in some way alters that individual's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, physical nature, health, in such a way that is going to be more amenable to the individual who is yielding the weapon. So in other words, I'm changing an individual's stance towards me in some way and making them engage in a stance that's more aligned with what I want them to be. That's a formal definition of a weapon that comes right out of the Oxford English Dictionary.
As the coronavirus pathogen flooded the earth, disrupting the whole of society, powerful neuroweapons were deployed to change our behavior into a global consciousness, yielding our individual sovereignty, once the domain of Almighty God, into the hands of the global puppeteers for exploitation and final destruction. What are the purposes of the neuroweapons? Morbidity, which is defined as making you sick, as you will soon discover with coronavirus and some of the new bioweapons that will be released, and also mortality, killing you outright, either over a long period of time or suddenly. It really doesn't matter. Let us listen once again.
Clearly, when we think of weapons, we think of things like bombs, tanks, planes, boats, soldiers. And that's not incorrect. I mean, I think the more colloquial use of a weapon represents some instrument that's going to induce some kind of morbidity or mortality. And when utilized in these bellicose constructs, that's certainly one of the ideas of weaponology. But weaponology, as we discussed last time, can also include things that I do to my own forces, whether it's the human resources or whether the actual forces themselves, to make them more efficient in their mission of national security, intelligence, and defense, not only in terms of what I do to others. In that sense,
right now, the military and government are joining together, yoking, if you will, to harness your neurological system. And what is that? That is your nervous system, which is a complex network of nerves and cells that carry messages to and from the brain and the spinal cord to various parts of your body. These neuroweapons are removing you from the protection of God. Hear the word of the Lord. But now, O Lord, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art the potter, and we are the work of thine hands. Isaiah 64:8. And as we listen, let us think of the following biblical passage also. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath the righteous with the unrighteous? And what communion hath light with darkness? 2 Corinthians 6:14.
if we put the neuro prefix to weapon, what we're really looking at is harnessing the neurological system, both peripherally and centrally, and its functions of thought, emotions, and behavior, so as to then yield instruments, methods, techniques, tactics, and tools that can then be leveraged against others.
Your kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition.
In the following, you can clearly hear that the military and government are gaming. They are purchasing your emotions and conduct, an alarming thought indeed. So let's listen.
So as for us to then gain some purchase over their thoughts, emotions, and conduct.
A neuroweapon is a weaponized tool to change your body and mind, molding it to fit the satanic globalist agenda. These neuroweapons are comprehensive.
So a neuroweapon is essentially any weaponized method or tool that acts through the nervous system or at the nervous system, upon the nervous system, to influence and change the attitudes, feelings, thoughts, behaviors of others. To influence and change the attitudes, feelings, thoughts, behaviors of others.
Not only can neuroweapons impact your mind and body, they are tools designed to exploit and extract your most personal and intimate information, some of which is only known unto your creator until it is extracted or mined from your body and mind. These weapons impact how you think and move.
Are involved in different processes of cognition, emotion, and various actions and what their dispositions might be. And we can use those both as information.
The researchers and scientists and military who develop neuroweapons use interventions to hack into your life and use things such as false narratives, meme symbols, and icons that subvert your mind and body, making them hackable to psychological operations. Once again, we will hear about a yoking between biomedical life sciences and the physical sciences that result in a fall. Let's listen.
As possible reconnaissance targets, if you will, to then affect those substrates, those processes and mechanisms, either indirectly through the use of narratives, memes, symbols, iconographies, psychological operations, human terrain teaming engagements, or more directly. Now, when we're talking about things that are direct, now we're talking about interventional things.
Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that?
And given the fact that the neurosciences are indeed a biomedical life science that also conjoins the physical sciences, now what we're talking about is those things that tend to fall.
Today, neuroweapons and the data derived from such have no national or international oversight. In fact, they were designed to operate in the gray areas of current treaties forbidding toxins and chemical weapons.
Under the rubric of biological toxins and chemical weapons, broadly construed as drugs, microbes or bugs, toxins, devices, and data.
That little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents.
And it's those latter two, devices and data, that are really becoming ever more prominent as a consideration and a concern with regard to international oversight.
Neuroweapons are being employed kinetically, and what that means is they are relating to the motion of material bodies and the forces and energy associated with them. And also non-kinetic instruments, and that is targeting, which is used in military doctrine to describe a military operational way to influence a target or an addressee in order to achieve a designated political or military goal. The 4 factors italicized are used to analyze non-kinetic targeting, complementing our knowledge and understanding of the kinetic prevalence. Paradoxically, non-kinetic targeting is not recognized as a separate concept. Kinetic and non-kinetic are intertwined facets of targeting. Let's listen.
Neuroscience and neurotechnologies are then leverageable and employable as weapons on a variety of different fronts, not only being used kinetically, but increasingly being used as non-kinetic instruments to effect disruptive effects rather than destructive effects per se.
Neuroweapons have become increasingly sophisticated and have gone operational, which means they are now being used and used extensively.
Neurotechnological devices. Certainly these devices have gained in their sophistication and their capability over the past decade and a half, and their viability and potential value for use in various forms of weaponology has increased as a consequence of not only their sophistication and capability, but also their facility of being developed and then being employed operationally in many cases.
Due to their overt and common usage, neuroweapons have come onto the radar of those who manage biological and weapons conventions.
Forms of testing and deployment that would then render them operational under a range of circumstances and conditions. That has not escaped the auspices of many of the groups that are participatory in the Biological Toxins and Weapons Convention.
When scientists, researchers, and the military talk about neuro devices, they are talking about enabling devices. Think of it like this. They are keys to your body and mind, and if it were possible, even your very soul. This is confirmed by their own words, in which they say that these devices are radically leveling. This is another dimension to the word leveling that means a societal global fashion. In this case, radical leveraging removes you from being human in many different levels, from biologically to spiritually.
I think there are some interesting things that also need to be considered.
They used to say guns don't kill people. People do. Well, people don't. They get emotional, disobey orders, aim high.
The last 2 things we were talking about were devices and data. And I think when we're talking about devices, it's not just the devices that are the neuro devices themselves, but are there enabling devices? Are there current technologies that can be then radically leveling?
What is the end goal of these neuroscientific tools and instruments? It's basically mass disruption and immediate destruction.
Let's watch the weapons make the decisions. Now, trust me, these were all bad guys. Now, that is an airstrike of surgical precision. It's one of a range of products. Trained as a team, they can penetrate buildings, cars, trains, evade people, bullets, pretty much any countermeasure. They cannot be stopped.
That could then allow the use of a variety of these different neuroscientific tools and techniques to then be implemented as either instruments of mass disruption and or perhaps as tools of intermediate to mass destruction.
So what we're going to listen to next is going to be talking about swarms of vehicles that I would propose to you are visible and invisible, biological and non-biological, that have been prepared on and are deploying to deliver neurological chemicals and neurological microbes to the masses of humanity in a 2-step process. First to make you sick and then to kill you. Let's listen.
In this case, what we're looking at is the use of drones, for example.
Can you hear me? Oliver, can you hear me? Listen to me.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
It's close.
Unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles, ground vehicles, aquatic vehicles, to deliver payloads of various forms of neurological chemicals, neurological microbes, whether those be bacteria and or viruses.
As a result of precision medicine and the COVID testing mandate, your blood is being taken from your body and put into a quantum computer database to be analyzed by artificial intelligence, with a variety of neuroweapons being formed against you individually and even large aggregates of people. That means specific, whether they're races or religions or whatever aggregate they want. These will be deployed by swarms of drones and other forms of unmanned vehicles.
Dumb weapons drop where you point them. Smart weapons consume data. When you can find your enemy using data, even by a hashtag, you can target an evil ideology right where it starts.
Neurological toxins, to a variety of different populations that range from the individual to a fairly large aggregate of individuals utilizing multiple drones and or other forms of unmanned vehicles.
These are available today. We have a distribution network taking orders from military, law enforcement, and specialist clients.
In the next clip, we will see that the cat is slowly coming out of the bag. Using gene editing techniques such as CRISPR, a structure of various organisms are engineered as if a new creation, which is indeed what the Wuhan pathogen is, and more are coming our way from bioweapon facilities around the world.
The other thing that we're concerned about is certainly the use of gene editing techniques, CRISPR, Cas9, Cas12, not just taken alone, but in concert with extant gene editing techniques. The relative ease of acquisition of these techniques and their relative ease of use, again, this is not for the completely naive, but someone with basic gene editing and or microbiological skills and molecular biological skills could in fact utilize these techniques to modify an existing microbe, an existing virus, perhaps even existing structures of various organisms to create something that is modified or perhaps anew.
More nefarious, these new entities are not covered under biological and toxin weapons conventions, so they can be used by large actors, small actors, and independent actors. These actors are knowingly sidestepping known conventions, designing something new and or modifying pathogens and chemicals in their own words.
Make sense of an attack on university campuses worldwide, which targeted some students and not others. The search for a motive is apparently turning to social media, and a video shared by the victims exposing corruption at the height.
It's far from surprising. The weapons took away the expense, danger, and risk of waging war. And now we can't afford to challenge anyone, really. It's not even the smallest fringe group or a crank.
Who could have done this?
Anyone.
And the problem we have with that is that those particular new entities might not currently be covered, categorized by the Biological Toxins and Weapons Convention. So here we have the opportunity to sidestep the scope and tenor of those conventions by creating something new or modifying that heretofore has not been listed as a weaponizable agent.
Another enabling technology, nanotechnology, allows penetration into your body or any biological system where it can auto-assemble within you. Once it is assembled, it will work as your chaperone. Think of this as an artificial intelligence networking entity who accompanies you and looks after you as a person or a group of people. This entity has supernatural characteristics and magical qualities that are, let's just say, not of the domain of this earth. Listen attentively.
If we take a look at some other enabling technologies, for example, nanotechnology. Nanotechnology can be used to provide scaffolds or micelles that then allow the auto-assembly of molecules in situ, allow their penetrance into a biological system. They can work as chaperones. As well, we can utilize these nanomaterials independently because of some of the characteristics that the nanomaterials possess and some characteristics that can be imbued upon them.
Once these nanoparticles enter your body, they automatically swarm together inside of you, which causes physiological and mental disruptions. Isn't that what we heard about the coronavirus pathogen? Clotting and masses in the lungs of patients that did not respond with regular medical treatment, which in fact harmed, if not killed, the patient. I would submit to you that these were some of the deployed neurotechnological weapons due to their unique signature.
Autoaggregation, clumping, disruption, and these can have physiologically disruptive effects when then introduced into a biological system.
I know that you have been waiting for heinous confirmation about geoengineering, nanoparticles, and other particulates deployed into our air. Here is your confirmation. They are weapons. They are force multipliers. In military science, force multiplication or a force multiplier refers to a factor or a combination of factors that gives personnel or weapons, that's military, the ability to accomplish greater feats than without it. And they are also potentiators, which means they cause certain chemicals and toxins to become more potent and more powerful. Let's listen.
And one of the more recent developments has demonstrated that these types of nanomaterials are aerosolizable. We can spray them into the air. These types of nanomaterials are aerosolizable. We can spray them into the air.
If the time comes and we are asked to do it, we'll be ready.
What are some of the capabilities that this aircraft can do in terms of an aerial spray?
Well, we can spray for mosquito missions where we're spraying a little bit of chemical over a large, vast area, all the way up to spraying a large volume of chemical for herbicide missions, which is killing foliage on bombing ranges, which is dumping a lot of chemical.
I have a use for you.
Now, again, the aerosolizable field at present is rather limited in terms of its size and with regard to its durability and its distance. But these are simply steps toward what may then be probabilities and/or possibilities of how nanomaterials might be used either alone and/or in tandem with other things to either be force multipliers and potentiators or to be used as weaponizable entities themselves.
Weaponized data and information are part of this particular weaponry.
And last, but certainly not least, is the idea of weaponized data, weaponized information.
Data is being used as a force multiplier to engage your brain and body in its own destruction.
We've looked at how data might in fact be influential with regard to a force multiplication, not only to engage what the brain sciences are capable of doing, but also to engage the brain sciences in weaponizable ways.
You have probably heard of brain mapping. This is a tool for artificial intelligence to access at global scale all the brains on the planet, bringing them into submission and domination.
I would posit, as a brain scientist myself, that much of the contemporary trajectory of what the brain sciences are recently doing and are intended to do, or aiming to be done, the larger scale and very innovative projects, for example, in imaging and brain mapping, in trying to access the brain remotely on a variety of scales and to engage the brain's functions on a variety of scales.
Big data is yoked with artificial intelligence and is needed to make real-time accessibility to your brain and your body and provide policymakers your information on a silver platter to make their decisions.
All require big data. And big data that is then yoked to some form of decision technology and or some level of artificial intelligence to be able to sensibilize those data, assimilate those data, synthesize them, and use them in a real-time accessible way.
Scientists, researchers, and military are not interested in your proprietary data, hackability, but just as a force multiplier for the brain sciences.
Now, of course, we're concerned about things like custodianship and proprietary nature of data and access to the data and its relative hackability, and all of these represent real concerns. But more than that, I think, is the issue that to really force multiply the brain sciences or any area of bioscience and technology.
Once your barriers have been breached by these neurocognitive weapons, everything, even your own cells and all the information that they carry, will be yoked to artificial intelligence for real-time acquisition, assimilation, synthesis, and dispersal operations, such as the announcement this morning of a new chimeric virus named UFO, provocatively. These new viruses can produce previously undetected proteins by stealing genetic signals from their hosts. The researchers labeled them UFOs, upstream Frankenstein open reading frame proteins, as they are encoded by stitching together, as in yoking, and that we've been talking about, the host and the viral sequencing. These UFO proteins can alter the course of the viral infection and could be exploited for vaccine purposes. There is no knowledge of the existence of these kinds of proteins prior to this study. That's prior to the coronavirus. The image of the person going up is also featured in the Bank of America End Times murals, which brings an even more interesting dimension to this whole topic.
Utilizing big data, you require cells of data that then must be yoked. In other words, you have nodes and edges in networks of data that then allow this level of real-time acquisition, assimilation, synthesis, use, dispersal.
These beings are not concerned about you as a human because you are defined merely as a node or a cog in a wheel. Your only value, or the only thing that is of value, is the system, the stackability, and the hackability of the nodes, which is you, in the system that might make them vulnerable. You are expendable.
And it's not so much the actual nodes themselves that we worry about with regard to their hackability, but instead the networks, the edges of those nodes that allow their interaction on a variety of scales and levels and magnitudes. And those are the things that the stackability of those nodes within networks really gives rise to their relative hackability.
Your information, as you probably know, is used in a variety of ways that are malevolent. And on occasion, some are benevolent, but on the most part, it is malevolent at this point.
And what we're worried about in this concern are a number of things. Number one, that the more data I have about an individual or groups of individuals, the more information clearly I'm able to amass about them, and the more I can use that information in a variety of ways. Many ways that are benevolent, certainly, but also in ways that may be malevolent.
Listen to how your personal information is yoked to make you a targeted individual victim.
In other words, the more I know about you, the more I know where your relative strengths, capabilities, weaknesses, and flaws lie, and the more I can target those things in ways that are specific to you. And that can be across a range of dimensions. It could be your biology. It could be things that have to do with your psychology. It could have to be things with your social engagements, or even something that has to do with your economics. So what I'm able to do is vulnerabilize you by virtue of the amount of information I'm able to put together about you and then yoke that to other information.
There is no hiding today in our current system. What you need to do is begin to reduce your kinetic action or your motion. Take a page out of the invisible man's playbook. Now is the time.
I can track you in real time based upon your various movements and the various kinetics that come out of your social media cell phone and how you're using, for example, credit cards in a variety of different loci in your geographies.
Just how far will this disruption and destruction go if you oppose the agenda and the system that is assembling before your eyes? Just say nobody in your sphere, from your family members to acquaintances, is safe.
I can link you to others in your social chain, and each one of those then becomes a viable nexus through which I can then vector some influential effect, disruptively or destructively.
What is more up close and personal than a weapon of mass destruction? Precision pathologies that were developed by you submitting your blood to AI through the programs of precision medicine and COVID testing. Listen to what Dr. Evil is saying.
If we take that down to the biological level, the more I know about you biologically in terms of your genome and your genetics and particular aspects of your phenotype, the more I may be able to develop precision pathologies that can affect you specifically in ways that are unique and peculiar to you. And I can do that in a very up-close and personal way to disrupt a variety of your physiological processes and therefore create relative devastation, disruption, and destruction.
How will you survive once the complete vastness of your data has been corrupted? Is your data what defines you?
Perhaps of the things that you are and the things that you do. But I can go beyond that as well. I can corrupt individuals' data by inserting information, very, very, very low level, minute information that changes the entire tenor of the information about them. In other words, the information that exists about you defines, if you will, your online presence. It defines your cyber presence, your cyber identity. It is your cyber fingerprint, footprint, retinal print.
Right now, certain operations are messing with your records and your footprint. This tweaking may be so small that it is not discernible or perceptible. This is character assassination and will ultimately result in influencing just how much, or if you can at all, operate within society. Sobering yet, it is scalable from the cellular level to the societal level.
And by altering those data in some way, by inserting things or omitting things from your medical record, particularly things that are a bit obtuse or a bit amorphous, what I may be able to do is to insert or remove certain things that are crucial to the way you are regarded and the way you are treated. I can, for example, put into your medical record that you have a familial history of psychiatric disease, or that you particularly have some underlying biological condition. that may require treatment or that may negate your treatment. And as a consequence, the way you are not only regarded medically, publicly, politically, legally, and economically, but the way you are engaged and the nature of your engagements can be affected on a variety of scales, literally from the cellular all the way to the social.
The bottom line is viable weaponry of things that induces scalar effects that first cause disruption and then ripple outwards to the destruction of humanity and biological systems if these visionaries have their way.
So when we're talking about the viable weaponology of things neuro, or any really area of bioscience and tech, what we're worried about is those scalar effects that are both disruptive and ultimately, by virtue of ripple, destructive.
There's more streaming out of the bowels of technology, so stay alert and aware, and I will bring you further news on the topic. Until the next time.